probably one of the most pillow-fisted guys on the roster, women included.
Welcome to Tapping Vegas, and today we are breaking down UFC 303, and I'm back with Bullshito Bobby. We had a great week last week. We threw a little extra into the Twitter sphere, into the X sphere, about some bets that we were on, because the fight that we had actually recorded, the guy pulled out, and so we got a different opponent. Not enough time to record a whole other episode, so we just threw it up on the Twitter. Hey, not only did the over hit, but I believe it was a method too, right? The method hit. So we got both of them.
Yes.
And I believe one of them was plus money. Believe it was the over-under was at plus money. So tell the people how we did last week, Bobby.
Yeah, last week we went up 4.3 units, and so as a result of that, we're now up a total of 10 whole units in positive direction for this year currently right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys head over to bettergreen.com. That's better, BETTOR green.com. Check out our fantasy guide over there. If you like fantasy football, you have to check it out. It's only $10 right now on pre-order. You get it for 50% off. And the first fight that we are breaking down today is we've got Payton Talbott versus Yanis Ghemmouri. Payton Talbott is a huge, huge favorite in this one, guys. He's fast, overwhelming striker with some KO power. He wants to stand. He can grapple. He's more of a defensive grappler. This guy, his striking's so good that he doesn't need to use grappling. Yanis, on the other hand, he's got that kickboxing style, some low hands. He spins frequently, so you're going to lose track of your target. Lower volume and walks backward. You cannot walk backwards against Payton Talbott. He's just going to attack you, piece together, and get the finish. And at minus 1,600 that it sits right now, you have to take a method. I'm taking the knockout. 92% of the bets and 82% of the money. Right now, Vegas, if they have to pay out 82% of the money at minus 1,600, I mean, that's a fight that they can afford to be to lose with a whole bunch of public money on it. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add with this. Anytime you have a fighter who is that heavy of an underdog, while I will say in Payton Talbott's case, I do like him and all that fun shit, but it is a little bit ridiculous in his very young UFC career at this point in time to have such a heavy betting line to the levels of like Khabib and John Jones and everything. But I mean, in this particular fight, you have to look at it case by case basis. I can't disagree with it. This is Talbott's second, official UFC fight, not counting the Contender Series win that he had. He's won both fights by finish, round 3 rear naked in his debut against Nick Aguirre. Cameron Simon, another bright young prospect in the division, absolutely demolished him in round 2 with the straight left to ground punches. Payton Talbott did all this so far. And, yeah, I have no reason to think right now that that's going to stop anytime soon. I wholeheartedly agree. KO, TKO is probably how he gets it done. I am most concerned about his grappling going forward based off what I remember from his Contender Series fight. I was a little hesitant on betting on him once I saw some grappling issues that he had, but let's just say that I don't think it's going to get exposed in this fight. I don't think it's going to be a concern in this fight, and yeah, this is kind of like the biggest bar something crazy, like a freak injury, Tony Ferguson tripping over a cable type thing. This is kind of like the biggest gimme on the whole card.
We're going to start doing a little bit more over-unders too. This line's set at 1.5. That makes it really tricky for a fight like this. I'm not exactly sure which way I'd want to take this. Which way would you take it, Bobby?
Yeah, this one's tricky because Talbott, yeah, that's why they have the over at the minus 215, because I was just about to say Talbott is not a one-punch guy. He is an accumulation guy, just like Shara Magomedov, that type of thing, like a Nick Diaz, wear you down and get the TKO with volume type thing. That is definitely Payton Talbott from what I've seen of him thus far. So, yeah, you're not even going to really honestly be able to take the edge off with the over 1.5 set at minus 215 right now. But, I mean, that's what I'd put my money on.
I would agree. I think with a favorite this high, people aren't going to want to take that, and they're going to think, well, if he's that good, he's going to get it done early, and I can get it at plus 165 currently. And so I think a lot of people are going to go that way, and it's going to be a way that Vegas can probably reap in a lot of that money that they are going to lose on the 82% that had their money on Payton Talbott.
Right, exactly.
All right, Bobby, why don't you take this next fight?
Yeah, this fight's going to be Jean Silva versus Charles Jourdain. This is a really exciting fight. This is a good one that is definitely it has my attention. Jean Silva, he's another guy who came off the Contender Series last September, won his debut, got the contract. This is going to be his second official UFC fight. And I think his first UFC fight, Jean Silva's debut, might have some clues for us for how this fight with Charles Jourdain is going to go. And here's why I think that. So Silva's used to being the shorter guy. He's about 5'7", and this is at 145 pounds. So it's not like he's undersized for the weight class, but he's definitely also never going to be the tallest guy at 145 when he's walking around at 5'7". But what's interesting, though, is Weston Wilson, his debut fight, that was a guy who was 6'1". Huge height and reach advantage that he had over Jean Silva. Now, the height and reach advantage that Charles Jourdain has, I thought was going to be a lot more drastic because seeing Charles Jourdain in the octagon, he looks, at least to me on TV, bigger than what he is because he's 5'9". I was fully expecting to think that he was at least 6 foot, 6'1", that type of thing. But nonetheless, he still has a 2-inch height advantage over Jean Silva. Charles Jourdain has a 69-inch reach, and Silva has a 69-inch reach also. So even though Jourdain has the height, the reach is identical. And I know all this is going to be on the screen in front of you, but it plays into my analysis because what I'm getting at is Silva's debut with Weston Wilson. Wilson was very much the type of guy that Charles Jourdain is, this tall, rangy guy who usually has that range and that height advantage over their opponents. They try to force that advantage, and when they can't force that advantage, they struggle. They have an in-and-out style. They try to have like that karate, like kind of like point style. More so Weston Wilson with a karate influence. Simpsonville guy from, I believe, North Carolina, not South Carolina. I could be getting it wrong, but what I'm getting at with that is trains probably under Wonder Boy because that's where Wonder Boy has his gym. We already know the karate boxing in-and-out stance that Wonder Boy has. That's what Weston Wilson has. Charles Jourdain doesn't necessarily do the karate box, but he definitely point fights. And I know it's probably going to get some hate comments because there's people still living in 2020, 2018 right now. Yeah, 2019 when he made his debut, people still think Charles Jourdain is some type of dark horse in 145. I don't think he is. I think we've seen him. We know what he is. And here's my analysis. Silva's going to basically fight this fight like he did Weston Wilson. It's not going to be a problem that Jourdain's the taller man. Silva was really good in that Weston Wilson fight about being able to get in on the huge reach and height advantage that Weston Wilson had on him without being countered on his way in. He was very smart about it, very methodical about it, and he has some power. Like every shot that he was hitting Weston Wilson with, he didn't get, bloodthirsty for the finish, just very methodical, set himself up, squared his stance up, had a good stance, and just boom, good shot selection. And every shot was just wilting Weston Wilson. And a lot of people think that Silva's kind of suspect in the grappling department, even though he's Brazilian and trains out of a pretty good gym down there in Brazil. The Nerd Fight Team, they're starting to make a name for themselves with their little taped up glasses in the middle. You see guys wearing those after their fights. That's the team they're on. So Silva is just really, really good puncher for the weight class. It seems like he has dynamite in his hands, very methodical, very focused on the finish, doesn't headhunt, will mix it up to the body. Easily able to defend Weston Wilson's takedowns. Once he first rocked Wilson, he started to shoot, but the takedowns are very sloppy, very good at avoiding them. The one takedown that did land on Silva, able to, use his leverage, bounce right back up to his feet, get back to the center of the octagon, regain control, wasn't an issue. I don't think Jourdain's going to try to grapple. That is the X factor in this fight, is if he does try to press that perceived advantage that he has. I'm not sure how that's going to play out because I haven't seen too much of Silva's grappling to base judgment off of. but I firmly believe Jourdain is going to want to do what he always tries to do, especially against another guy that wants to strike against him. We just saw it with Sean Woodson, striker versus striker. Silva's going to want to strike, Jourdain's going to want to strike, and Jourdain's going to want to just honestly point fight. Just play it very safe, play it very conservative, and just try to score points and not get hit. I just don't think he's going to be able to do that for even 3 rounds against Silva. Silva's just way too good and used to not ever having that height and reach advantage. He's just pretty much what you should do as a shorter fighter with a lesser reach advantage is really work on your infighting and really work on your pocket boxing and just fighting in that phone booth and making it nasty for guys and taking away kicks, because Jourdain also likes to use kicks. That's a lot more difficult to do when you got somebody like Silva just being a little pit bull in your face going after you. You can't use the full leverage of those kicks to really make them hurt. So, yeah, I just think Silva's going to get this done. I want to say KO TKO, but it just does worry me how much Jourdain is elusive. He is really good at, like I said, just getting in and out, just tap, 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 avoid the shot, tap, tap, tap. So that's a little concerning to me, but, I mean, I do like how they have the under on this currently set at a plus. So I do like that because Weston Wilson in his debut was finished in round 1. So I think that under 2.5 at plus 130 is a really good value for Silva because I do see a finish, and at 2.5, that's pretty much money. That's money to me. I like that a lot. Under 2.5, that's a very reasonable goal to try to hit. So right now, unfortunately, the odds have kind of moved to more of a pick'em. When I last looked this up yesterday, I was happy because Silva was a bit of a dog, I believe, at like a plus 110, maybe 120, somewhere around in there. Moneyline, Jourdain minus 118, Silva minus 102. If you go over 2.5, minus 166. If you go under 2.5, plus 130. Yeah, I'm going to go Silva, KO, TKO, and I'm going to go under 2.5 to hit that plus 130. What do you got, Ben?
I'm not going to spend too much more on this fight than you did. I think you broke it down excellent. Both fighters, I think they're talented in all aspects, except with Silva. I think he's able to get takedowns and transition straight into subs, which I've not seen from Jourdain. With Jourdain, I can see a lot of his kicks, they've been caught, and he can get really sloppy at times. I'm really surprised that Silva, I think it's because Silva doesn't have the experience and the exposure that Jourdain does, but Silva right now, 49% of bets, 71% of the money. So he's got over 20% of the sharp money coming in on Silva. I like it. I like Silva too in this one, and I'm also on the under with you. I like that we're getting that 2.5 line. I think it gives us a little bit of breathing room. Neither of these guys, they can go to a decision, but I think a lot of their fights have been ended early, whether it's submission, or different the knockout. I like Silva in this one too, Bobby. I think that was a great breakdown.
Thank you.
Next up, we got Ian Garry versus Michael Venom Page, MVP. Ian Garry, he's that dude. He's still looking for his first loss. Striker, knockout power. I'd say he's got average grappling defense. He's a guy that wants to stay standing, though. Ian Garry, to me, is a bit of a point fighter, but so is MVP. So who can point fight better? The way Michael Page made Kevin Holland look back when they fought was just, I mean, it was comical. Kevin Holland got so upset towards the end. The dude, he really stopped fighting. He just started looking around and just shaking his head and throwing his hands up in the air because he just had no answer for MVP's karate boxer. Just in and out, just come in, hit you, and get out of danger. I'm going to have to go with MVP, and we're getting MVP currently at plus 130, so we're getting him at underdog prices, 56% of the bets, 53% of the money. I don't believe in Ian Garry personally. I don't love Michael Venom Page either, but just from what we saw out of MVP versus Kevin Holland, which Kevin Holland just had an impressive win here not too long ago, I think that MVP showed enough for me to take him to win a decision over Ian Garry, but I don't even have to pick a method since I can get him at the plus 130. What do you think, Bobby?
This fight is the most difficult one for me to kind of think about in terms of deciding how this fight's going to play out and who might potentially win this fight because there's just so much to go over with this. So I don't like either guy. If you've been watching this show, following me on Twitter, if you're a Bullshido Bobby guy out there or girl, I love all my fans, no matter what gender you are, and I appreciate you for being part of the team. You know that I absolutely despise both of these individuals. I am no fan of Ian Garry. I am definitely no fan of Michael Venom Page. For the longest time, I hated Michael Page way more than I hated Ian Garry. Now the lines moved a lot closer, and I'm pretty equal with my criticism of both. Michael Page for him being the worst aspect of combat sports, which is being fed cans for highlight reel knockouts, and Ian Garry for basically being like kind of like this fight's at welterweight, I believe. Kind of being like a welterweight. Sean Strickland is the word I'm looking for here. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my problem with both of those guys. Ian Garry talks a lot. I have not necessarily seen him back it up yet. He talks about ending people. He talks about changing their bum lives and all this Conor McGregor stuff, which I don't mind. Conor McGregor is a good fighter to emulate in terms of promoting yourself, but it's kind of funny that you say you're going to end somebody and knock them out, and you go out there and pull the Sean Strickland and you scream at them as you're backing up and half-heartedly jabbing. So here's my analysis for this fight. People think this is going to be an exciting fight, and hey, I just had some props. Nice.
Hey.
So people think this is going to be an exciting fight. I'm sorry. I really don't think it is. And here's the main reason why I don't think Ian Garry and Michael Page is going to be an exciting fight. These two, pretty much their main weaknesses are the same. Anytime you have fighters who have the same weaknesses and you're relying on them to fight each other and to try to do what they're worst at and implement that as a focal point of their game plan, that's going to just be a recipe for disaster. And what I'm talking about is this. Ian Garry is not really good at the clinch. He thinks he is. He uses the clinch a lot, but he's not as good as he thinks he is in the clinch. Michael Page sucks in the clinch. He sucks in the grappling department. Ian Garry, not that great in the grappling department. I haven't seen enough of his grappling to feel confident in it. He's primarily a striker. So to rely on Michael Page to take down Ian Garry or Ian Garry to take down Michael Page is just a recipe for disaster if that's how they're going to try to approach this fight. Anytime you're trying to capitalize on what you're worst at and make it a huge part of your game plan, I feel like you're setting yourself up for failure. And here's some other issues. Ian Garry has a really huge issue with every fight in the UFC so far. He gets backed up to the fence multiple times. He really needs to work on his awareness of the cage because before you know it, he's completely flat with his back up against it. And that is kind of where Michael Page has made a career, is pushing cans like up against the fence and doing like a flying knee or doing like a flashy spinning kick, like a taekwondo karate flashy kick, like those type of things. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that's how he cracked Evangelista Santos's skull. Was he backed Santos up against the cage? Santos shot like a really sloppy takedown with no setup and just got completely flatlined by a flying knee, courtesy of Michael Venom Page. So Garry just constantly gets backed up to the fence. That's just so concerning. He's going to want to strike with MVP. Even though Michael Page has unfortunately wasted the majority of his career fighting inferior competition, I'm like you. I was very pleased to see what he was able to do against his first real step up in comp, which was Kevin Holland. And that leads me to another thing here about this fight. So we know the first Douglas Lima fight was the first loss that MVP ever experienced. And that basically came courtesy of a calf kick that buckled MVP. He got put on his butt, and then once he got up, Lima basically just like hammer of Thor punch was able to just like flatline MVP as he tried to get up from having his calf swept from the calf kick. So since then, people still think that the calf kick is an effective strategy to utilize against MVP. I can't disagree with that too much, but here's some issues with that. Douglas Lima in the rematch, MVP managed to win the rematch split decision. He was able to overcome that mental block, I guess you could call it, of being finished in essence by a calf kick that led to the finish. He was able to overcome that, move on. Lost the fight after that, but that was a split decision. Those are his only two losses. Getting to the Kevin Holland fight, it was interesting as I rewatched that fight this weekend to see Kevin Holland try to utilize the calf kick, but for whatever reason abandon it. To try to grapple and be in such advantageous positions against MVP at one point, almost having a rear naked choke sunk in, and then abandon it. So my biggest complaint and my biggest head scratcher is I feel like in that Kevin Holland fight, there's a little part of me that thinks that Kevin Holland lost because he gave up, because he lost the fight. It was his fight to lose. He was doing the right things. He was calf kicking, just abandoned it for no reason. Had grappling exchanges. Just did. If you ever find yourself in a position to have a rear naked choke, Nick Diaz told this to Nate Diaz, which led to him doing the double birds and his triangle finish over the guy who I'm forgetting right now, unfortunately. But you know what I'm talking about. And what I'm getting at with this is he told Nate, anytime you have a choke sunk in, you need to be able to do something like throw up the double birds to the camera because you know they're not getting out of that. And that's how a rear naked choke that you have against MVP should be when you're clearly the superior grappler. If you have that in, that needs to be a tap. That can't be him rolling out and reversing position and getting back to his feet like it was. So that's kind of my X factor is how much of that was Kevin Holland just like, I don't know, was he just getting frustrated? Like you said, was the taunting getting to him? Was like the mental thing a factor? What made him start off with a solid game plan and then just abandon it? Because I feel like for all my criticism of his antics, of his dancing around, of his little robot dance moves and, stutter stepping and all that, apparently it does get in guys' heads. Apparently it does piss them off. And another X factor is Ian Machado Garry, no matter how much he might think of himself as a mentally tough individual, is the guy who shut down his Twitter for a long time because of jokes about his wife. Like, clearly things get to him. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. So this is just a really interesting fight because I don't think the grappling is going to be at play, which is what makes me once again think it's going to be boring. It's just going to be – I don't need to talk anymore about karate boxing. I just spent a lot of the early half of the show talking about it, but that's what MVP has, that style. And Garry is a very safe guy also who likes to throw a left high kick, which has a opportunity to knock you out, or maybe it's a right high kick, but you know the one I'm talking about since he's an orthodox fighter. That has the potential, but other than that, like his most recent fight with Jeff Neal that I watched, very lackluster against a shot Jeff Neal that's no longer the guy he used to be. So what I'm getting at for my prediction is this. I don't think it's going to be exciting. I'll be honest. I think it's going to be boring. I think it's going to be very dirty. I think it's going to be a lot of clinching by both guys thinking they have the advantage there, primarily by Ian Garry to try to take away the striking prowess and the striking advantage that I feel like Page does have. And I just think it's just going to be really disgusting, honestly. And I also think Ian Garry, is getting a hype train. People like to act like he's this victim because of all the jokes about his wife and all that. But, he is getting a hype train. And I think this is kind of funny because Michael Page is the guy who's supposed to have the hype train right now that everybody should be really high on. And for him to be at a plus 130, I'm kind of baffled. I think this should be way closer to a pick 'em. Ian Garry just isn't showing me much to work with here. And I'm going to go with Michael Page. I really want to take a decision for either guy because Page by decision right now is plus 250. Garry by decision's plus 150. But I'm going to try to be safe, and I'm just going to say I'm going to take Michael Page money line at plus 130 right now. That's huge value. And I'm going to say this goes – oh, yeah, they're kind of expecting it. They think it's going to be over 2.5 because they got it set at minus 210. It's dicey at 2.5 because obviously this is a 3-round fight, I do believe, so you're not going to have much time left after that. But I don't see either guy getting a flash knockout. I just think it's going to be too safe and too boring of a fight to result in a flash knockout. Like the only time Michael Page was even knocked out was, like I said, the result of some calf kicks, which buckled him. He got caught coming up because he didn't defend himself. Gary's undefeated. Yeah, I'm taking the over, and I'm taking Page money line.
Oh, so we're on the same side there too, man. I'm loving it so far. Let's see how we do with Anthony Smith versus Dolidze.
Yeah, this is another fight that's really kind of just befuddling me. Anthony Smith and Roman Dolidze. This is a better fight than people give it credit for. I know the original was way better. I was looking forward to Olberg versus Smith like everyone else, but I'm not poo-pooing on this fight by any means because I know people are kind of hating on Anthony Smith lately, but I like Anthony Smith. I think he's a good fighter. He had a nice little run, and he's like a really good unfortunately, he's a gatekeeper, but I don't really mean that as an insult. Every division needs like a strong guy to kind of like, challenge the new young up and coming contenders and everything. And Anthony Smith's really good at that. He's really good at vetting the next guys in the division and everything. And he's, a legend. And I'm a big Anthony Smith guy. I really am. I like him a lot. So Anthony Smith he's pretty well rounded. You would think by looking at him that he's primarily like a knockout punch guy. He does have some power. He does have, very serviceable striking. But he also is a sneaky good grappler. He's not really in the conversation when people talk about good grapplers. But, man, his last fight, Anthony Smith, won by guillotine choke in round 1, making short work of Vitor Petrino. Rear naked choke against Ryan Spann, triangle choke on Devin Clark, rear naked choke on Gustafsson, rear naked choke on Volkan Ozdemir. Really good win considering how good Volkan looked last week against Johnny Walker. KO'd Shogun Hua. Granted, Hua was washed at the time, and Rashad Evans, when he got KO'd by Smith, were both washed at the time. But good fights, nice little rebound to his career that he had there that set him up for the choke out of Volkan Ozdemir. So, yeah, Anthony Smith is definitely a guy who's kind of got that vet edge coming in. 38-19, a lot of experience right there that he has. Dolidze has lost some momentum. Dolidze was widely touted as the dark horse in this division and everything, and now he's moving up. This fight's going to be a light heavyweight, so it's 205 pounds. Dolidze is normally at 185. He's just taking it on short notice. That's why he's moving up. Smith, there's no way. Dude used to be at 185, I do believe, is where he started his career, and he was just not built for it. He was killing himself making 185. He's definitely one of those guys that moving up has helped his career tremendously. So good on him for being smart enough to not just try to weight bully guys and actually learn some technique and everything. But yeah, Dolidze, man, that Imavov loss was ugly. That was ugly. I watched that live, and that was just disgusting. And I was on him for that fight, I believe. I picked him on Tapping Vegas to win, and it was just absolutely terrible. And he lost even after Imavov got the rarest thing in MMA, which is for the ref to actually do something for an illegal technique, for a violation of the rules. Imavov did a soccer kick on Dolidze as a grounded opponent, which is illegal in the UFC. You cannot soccer kick, and he actually had a point taken away in round 4 for soccer kicking Dolidze, and Imavov still won. That's not a good sign that a ref actually steps in and does their job and deducts a point, and you still lose the fight by a majority decision at that. I really feel like Dolidze's probably going to be on a 3-fight skid because he lost to Marvin Vettori before that. So it's 2 losses in a row right now that he's on. I feel like he's going to be on a 3-fight skid because his grappling's good, but once again, I feel like overrated, whereas Anthony Smith's is underrated. I feel like Dolidze's is overrated, and Smith definitely has the striking advantage in terms of having the better technique, the better power, the gas tank if he can't get the one-punch knockout, which he's got some brutal knees and some brutal elbows. Like Smith's a dog. Smith is, like I said, he's a very underrated guy. Everybody likes to crap on him, but dude is very well-rounded, and I just feel like people are going to just be disappointed if you're putting your money on Dolidze because, like I said, grappling, Smith's an underrated grappler. I feel like Dolidze is overrated. He has good takedowns, but he's especially against Imavov, a guy that he's not known for like his grappling. Imavov's primarily, 100% a striker. He's wanting to keep it standing. He's wanting to pick you apart. He couldn't keep Imavov down. Like he struggled and he gassed so hard and had such sloppy takedowns. And granted, it was 5 rounds. This is going to be, I believe, still a 3-round fight. But man, by round 2, he was gassed on these takedown attempts and just absolutely terribly gassed too, like visibly take advantage of it type thing. And once again, all the takedowns and all the gas tank being depleted to not even be able to hold a striker down. And you're going to try to hold Anthony Smith down, and you're coming up at weight. Once again, Anthony Smith, 205 is perfect for him. He was killing himself to make 185. Dolidze is probably going to be a little chubby at 205. I don't feel like Dolidze is a pretty solid guy. He looks muscular, but I feel like 205, he's going to be a little out of shape, especially on short notice, trying to bulk up or he's cutting weight. So I'm sure he's not necessarily having to put on anything. He's just not cutting. That could be a double-edged sword. That could help him, like we saw it help Kelvin Gastelum. Apparently Gastelum, when he's not cutting weight, has an unlimited gas tank and constantly has motivation and is in your face. But usually when guys go up and they try to fight at their natural weight class and they can't weight bully, which is why weight cutting exists and is a problem in MMA, is because so many fighters want to weight bully. Usually you get put on your butt in your first fight, moving up a weight class so you're not too experienced, and especially up against a guy like Anthony Smith. I just keep convincing myself to go with Smith, and at plus 114 right now for him and a minus 135 to Dolidze, I'm liking it. I'm liking it quite a bit. And especially Anthony Smith by KO TKO at plus 450, that's great. Sub plus 700. This is what I'm torn between. Plus 450 for KO TKO, definitely could see that happening. Way better striker, way more power. The gas tank, if it's not one punch or one kick or one knee, to have a volume accumulation KO TKO. Already talked enough about the grappling, plus 700 sub. If Dolidze's shooting those sloppy takedowns and he's getting gassed and he's not able to keep up with the guy who's bigger than him, fighting at his natural weight class where he feels the strongest, where he feels the most energetic, easy recipe to get caught in a sub on a sloppy takedown, like a guillotine off a sloppy takedown, a triangle off a sloppy takedown, a rear naked choke that he likes. He likes those finishes. Smith does. So that's my biggest one right there. Is I'm torn. Maybe you can help me choose between the two, Ben, but at the money line alone, plus 114, I'm in on Smith until I see some life out of Dolidze after his last 2 fights. Oh,
we're gonna have the first disagreement here, and I agree with you that I think this is a very close fight. So I don't feel super strongly one way or the other. The one aspect that I did come across, I was looking for some more Dolidze stats because I just was going back and forth on this one. Do you know Dolidze was one of John Jones' partners when he was training for the title fight against Anthony Smith?
yeah, and I was also DK Metcalf's wide receiver coach in high school. I don't know that I fucking believe that.
Man, Roman Dolidze, too, he just seems like it's shocking that they're both 35. Because I just feel like Roman Dolidze seems like he still has so much life left in the UFC, whereas I feel like Anthony Smith is just a couple fights away from retirement. Dolidze does gas, but we did also see him in a 5-round fight. Like you said, he was pretty gassed in the second. I'm hoping that he's a little bit more prepared for this one. The short notice makes me a little nervous. But Dolidze utilizes kicks more. He does the low hand, so he could get knocked out by Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith definitely has a better combos, like you were saying, much better striker. Dolidze is not very accurate either. God, the more I talk about it, the more I want to switch back to Anthony Smith. But also, Dolidze is getting 42% of the bets, 47% of the money. A very close fight. I think this should be closer to a pick'em. I think I'm going to go with Dolidze still. And I don't know how it goes. Like, the line is set at, I believe it was 1.5 for this fight. Oh, see, 2.5, and it's minus 115 for both. I really don't know what way this goes. I could see this being an early stoppage. I could see this going to decision. I don't love either of them. I think is the big problem. Is that neither of these guys give me any strong confidence one way or the other. I'm gonna go with Dolidze. Just, I think that he just has more right now at this stage. Moving on to Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. Ortega, very dangerous sub artist. I was against Ortega in the last fight. I forget who he was fighting.
Yeah, Rodriguez was
Yes.
that fight.
Yes, yeah, Rodriguez. I was on Rodriguez for that fight. You were on Ortega. You made Ortega your haymaker, and you cashed out, buddy. You cashed out on that fight because that was like plus 300, something like that.
It was ridiculous.
And I'm going to be a fool and do the same thing. I'm going to say Brian Ortega is too old. He's not going to get it done. The thing I do like about Diego Lopes, though, is this dude stays in shape all year. I've been watching. I've always liked the UFC, but I've never watched The Ultimate Fighter. So this is actually my first season watching The Ultimate Fighter. And if you've watched, I forget which team he's on. I forget, but Diego Lopes is always in there with them. He's in like every episode. You'll see him in the background. This dude just stays ready all the time. He's going to be ready to go. He's young. He's hungry. He looks for finishes, which I really like. He's not just a point fighter. He comes out fast. He's got heavy hands. He's got good takedowns when he uses it. We just saw Diego Lopez's last win was very impressive. He's at minus 142 right now, 67% of bets, 75% of money. I think I'm going to have to be public on this one and go Diego Lopes as well. I think Diego Lopes is... I think last time we were talking about him, there were like the memes going around of that Diego Lopes is everybody's like favorite lesbian fighter just because of his looks. He's still, I don't understand that haircut, but I know the dude can fight. So I'm going to go with Diego Lopes. I'm going to start putting some respect on his name. Bobby, where do you sit on this fight?
I do put respect on Diego Lopez's name, and I did call that he was going to beat Sadiq Youssef in his last fight, which is very controversial because people are still riding Youssef's dick without a license, acting like it's once again whatever fucking year he was, a guy in. It's not that year anymore. I don't know if it's 2019, 2020. Well, that's the sound of 2024 pulling your ass over for riding that dick. So. Yeah, I called that for Diego Lopes. This fight, another fight. This is the beauty of good matchmaking that the UFC very rarely has on cards like this. Some quality matchmaking where every fight we're covering, you could make a very strong argument in favor of the, one individual over the other. This is no exception. Brian Ortega plus 120, Lopes minus 142 right now, as you said. Here's my biggest X factors in this fight, right? Here's how I'm looking at this fight. Lopes, not much to work off of. He's ended fights in the UFC so fast. It's very hard to kind of glean much from his tape. His longest fight was Movsar Evelev, which was his loss in the UFC. So a little bit can be seen from that. But, I mean, other than that, he's the better striker for sure. I really feel confident in saying Lopes is the better striker. Definitely the more powerful guy. Once again, Ortega's a volume-based guy. If he's going to get a KO, TKO, other than his uppercut over a washed Frankie Edgar, he's very much, if he's going to take you out, it's going to be an accumulation type thing, kind of like he did. I don't know if it was a TKO over Zombie. I've got to check that out right quick, but that's what he's known for. He's going to have some accumulation rather than that one-punch knockout. So, Lopes, power. He's got the one-punch knockout. He's got the power. He's every shot. It's going to be – you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. You're going to be visibly wobbled. And if he's all over you like he was Youssef, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. You're not going to be able to recover fast enough unless your chin is made out of adamantium. Like, it's not happening. So Ortega did take Zombie to a decision, but he battered Zombie. Battered him. Probably should have been a TKO KO, but once again, he just doesn't have that dynamite like Lopes does in his hands. So I'm very worried if Brian Ortega keeps this standing because even though he got the round 3 sub over Yair Rodriguez, man, when I saw him on that takedown that led to the finish, to the sub by arm triangle of Yair, he was getting lit up by Yair Rodriguez. And granted, most of those shots Yair was able to land were primarily punches. And as far as his boxing and his punching, Yair Rodriguez is probably one of the most pillow-fisted guys on the roster, women included, with just like his flailing, like hammer fist and everything, like just absolutely disgusting to look at with no power behind him. It was still concerning because if you try to do that against Diego Lopes, you're getting your head caved in. And that is the most concerning thing because that is Brian Ortega's kryptonite is also his biggest strength. His biggest strength is grappling. His grappling really is top class, amazing, best in the world Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, training under Rener Gracie, just able to find the sub from anywhere, primarily triangles. That's why his nickname's T-City, Triangle City, but he'll take whatever you give him. Almost ended Volk, was the first guy to drag Volk into deep waters, had a massive mounted guillotine. I still to this day have no idea how Volk got out of that, but Brian Ortega was the guy to challenge him before anybody else and almost end that reign and put up a good fight. It was a great fight, and his striking has vastly improved from his fight against Max Holloway up until now. He showcased it in the aforementioned Korean Zombie fight, but man, it's tough. It's tough because I think Lopes is going to be smart enough to want to keep it standing. I think he is going to recognize that he does have that striking advantage. And Ortega is just still so hittable. Like, even though he has made massive strides in his defense and offense from a striking standpoint since that Holloway fight, and he did all the right things, taking time off to heal, take time off to work on his technique to get better and all that, he still has issues that just leave him fundamentally exposed. And it didn't come back to bite him like it did against Yair, because once again, if Yair's not kicking you, if you take away his kicks, he's very pillow-fisted and he has no boxing. His boxing is absolutely disgusting and atrocious. And obviously, once again, on the mat, he's clueless. He's the guy who got taken down and just rode like a long hot pony in your mom on a Saturday night by the ghost of Frankie Edgar and had no answer for it. That was Yair Rodriguez. So I think Lopes is going to realize that he should not engage in the grappling with Ortega, because as great as he is at grappling, this is one of those levels to it type thing where if he wants to go to the mat with Ortega, it's going to be a huge mistake because he's going to quickly find out Ortega is that much better in that department. So at the beginning of this, I was on Ortega because Ortega's the dog right now on the money line. It's just every fight starts standing. He has the power. He has the vicious, like fast, like overwhelm you type setup that's going to give Ortega problems, because Ortega works best when he's able to set things up, because his takedowns, that's it. I was talking about it's his kryptonite and it's his biggest strength also. Where it becomes a kryptonite instead of a strength is Ortega is that classic BJJ guy who hasn't really worked on his wrestling and his takedowns and his clinch to a great enough degree to be able to really capitalize on that superb jiu-jitsu. He's not really that Gilbert Burns who was able to, work on some double and single legs and up against the cage clinch work to get you down to your butt to be able to use that grappling and everything. He kind of relies on you making a mistake, like he caught Cub Swanson in a guillotine based off Cub making just a little bit of a mistake. He could easily do that against Lopes, but I just, the more I think about it, the more I'm off Ortega, because every fight starts standing, and I think Lopes is going to be savvy to that. And I just think he's just got his striking's just too good compared to Ortega's, and I hope I don't regret it. But minus 142 for Lopes. I'm going to put the money on the KO TKO by Lopes to take the sting off at plus 180. I could see decision since it's only a three round fight. I could see the decision, but the problem is if it goes to decision, Ortega's going to win. So you're not going to win shit on Lopes by decision anyway. So if you're putting money on decision, you're going on the Ortega side of things. Sub, once again, if you're going by sub, you're putting it on the Ortega side of things. So I'm going Lopes KO TKO at plus 180 to kind of take the edge off the money line.
I like it, man. I like it. They are putting your meat on the table again, man. This last fight, Conor McGregor, we've been waiting for forever. Oh, wait. We're still waiting.
Yeah, not
Dang.
gonna happen.
Maybe we'll get it one day. They looks like they've rescheduled it. We'll see. We'll see. I am very skeptical if we're ever going to see him again. I really don't know. But we do have another championship fight here. A real championship fight. This is going to be my Nuck If You Buck fight of the night.
Yeah, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka 2. This is a rematch. Currently, we have Alex Pereira as a minus 135, Prochazka at a plus 114. Once again, another fight. Very difficult. Make a strong argument either way. Here's my argument. Here's my opinion. So, Prochazka at the plus 114 with Pereira at the minus 135. I feel like this should probably be, out of all these fights, the closest pick'em. And here's some reasoning as to why. Rewatching the first fight is the best indicator that you can go off of for rematches. So, Prochazka in that first fight, his biggest problem that he's had throughout his career, once again, like Ortega's grappling, this is Prochazka's strength. It's also his kryptonite. Very unorthodox, very careless, very low with his hands, just not very defensively sound with his striking. That's good because it really threw Pereira for a loop. Pereira really likes guys who are basically like carbon copy, textbook strikers. He's used to fighting those in Glory. He's used to fighting those in the UFC. He knows how to counter those. He knows how to exacerbate their weaknesses and downplay their strengths while increasing his strengths and downplaying his weaknesses. He's good with those textbook kickboxer types. He struggles with the weirdos like Jiri out there, just bobbing and weaving, taking his punches, eating it for dinner, that type of thing. He's not used to that. He's used to the left hook and they're going to sleep. Granted, I believe it actually was, can't remember if it was the left or maybe even the right hook that finished Jiri. But if I'm remembering the first fight correctly, Pereira was backed up to the cage, which I'm going to elaborate on that here in a second. Pereira was backed up against the cage. Jiri, I think, tried to shoot a takedown because he had had some success with that before. But before he could dip down, Pereira timed him beautifully and connected. I think it was from the angle I was watching, a right hook on the chin, not a left, that folded Jiri and led to the finish by TKO that Pereira had. So what I'm getting at with it is this. The grappling's the X factor because in the first fight, Prochazka had success taking down Pereira and just being a wet blanket. People really kind of read too much into his sub win over Glover because Glover is
Right.
like Pereira's protege. He's the mentor to Pereira. So Pereira is the protege. Glover is like the mentor, like the vet giving him the advice and the coach and all that. But here's the thing. They read too much into that because even though it was a rear naked choke finish over Glover that Jiri had, it was set up from the strikes. Glover was pretty much already out of it, wasn't able to intelligently defend because if he was, had his wits about him and everything, he should have been able to easily defend that, get out, recompose himself, get back into striking range, or at least, hold him in guard, tie him up for a little bit, get his wits about him, that type of thing. So it's not like Jiri is some type of master at grappling. I think his grappling is a little bit underrated, and it might even be better than Pereira's because, man, Pereira still looks lost on the ground, which is baffling to me, knowing how good of a grappling acumen Glover Teixeira has, and knowing that Glover is a BJJ black belt and Pereira has trained with him and been mentored by him for so long. It's crazy that to me his grappling still looks bad, if I'm being honest. Like his grappling is just hands down the biggest weakness of his game. And he's only able to have success with it when he's going up against somebody I don't know that Jan's bad, but once again, are people saying that Jan's a grappler? Because I heard somebody just the other day say Jan Blachowicz is a grappler because of what he was able to do to Adesanya. But it's like what Pereira was able to do to Blachowicz. I don't know that I would say that about Blachowicz. Was it the altitude of Denver? I don't know. But Pereira was able to, impose his grappling on Blachowicz. So people think Pereira is a better grappler, but I just don't see it, especially against the guy who we're breaking down the fight, and that's Jiri. I think Jiri has the advantage. Jiri is the one who had top position in the first fight. Jiri is the one who prevented Pereira from being able to get up to his feet. The only reason why Pereira did get up, I believe, was because the round ended, like the bell rung. So that's why he was able to get up. He wasn't sweeping, he wasn't transitioning, he wasn't doing anything except just kind of being held up against the fence in bottom position. And Jiri was pretty much doing whatever he wanted to advance or look for a choke or whatever. So that's definitely an X factor that has some concern. Uh, Jiri, I don't think he's chinny. It's just he's just so, I hate how he takes shots. He takes so many shots. Like Rakic, not a guy known for piecing you up, and he was piecing up Jiri until Jiri just out toughed him. But Jiri did have some success, like I mentioned earlier, backing Pereira up against the fence. That's huge. He constantly had Pereira backed up against the fence, even when he got finished. That's a good advantage Pereira had, having the wherewithal when your back is up against the fence to not panic, to just kind of stay composed, find that timing, find that precision, and find the chin for the knockout. But he was getting tagged pretty bad each time he was up against the fence until Jiri finally decided to mix in the grappling. And he didn't really have much of an answer except extending his guard and trying to do like the long, like mummy type guard that Daniel Cormier kind of used when he was fighting. And that's great to an extent, but it's easily navigated around and it opens you up to body shots and it still leaves your head open for hooks. It takes away the straight shots, but you can still get hooked. And this is where it's tough. I think this is a lot closer fight. I think a lot of people out there are really big fans of Pereira. I'm a big fan of Pereira. I'm also a big fan of Jiri. Unlike MVP and Garry, this is a fight where I really like both guys. I have a lot of respect for both guys, and they're both really talented. The two best guys in this division right now, hands down, definitely Pereira and Prochazka. And I would even argue this is a better fight than McGregor-Chandler. So as far as, hastily put together main event replacements, I'm definitely not poo-pooing at this one. I think it might even be better. But I can't keep dancing around it. As far as my pick, this is the last thing I'll say that influences my pick. When you look at rematches, people get really caught up in just picking whoever won the first time. And that's how I bent some people over and plowed them with the Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier too, because I said it from the rooftops. That was a very close competitive fight. Though Dustin Poirier knocked out Justin Gaethje, it was tooth and nails. They both had their moments and everything. And it was kind of similar lines where Gaethje wasn't a crazy underdog, but he was respectable, just like Prochazka is. And I think people just got really caught up in thinking it was just going to be the same replay as the first fight. And I don't think that Pereira, for all the footage of him sparring without headgear, I don't think that's going to play a role in it. That guy that he was sparring pulled a lot of punches, avoided actually connecting on shots. That's not going to play a role. Yuri's claiming there's some shaman magic. I don't think that's going to play a role. What I think is going to play a role is I saw footage of Yuri training with a guy who that is a damn good sparring partner, because that guy was beautifully replicating Pereira down to his style, down to that little bounce, that weird little it's not karate boxing bounce, but you know what I'm talking about, just like on the tip of your toes. Yeah, a little kickbox bounce. That guy was a really good imitation of Pereira. So that shows me that Yuri's taking this fight very serious. He's preparing accordingly. He's trying to find sparring partners that can emulate that style. I think he just got caught. I think he just got caught because he was doing everything right. He had a solid game plan. He was actually implementing that game plan. He wasn't abandoning it. And I think this time Another factor, in terms of rematches, he lost his rematch against Adesanya. So right now, Pereira is not exactly doing well in rematches. I know it's a very small sample size of only one fight, but I feel like it's about to be a sample size of two. And I feel like Pereira is going to lose this rematch. And I don't think it's going to decision. I do firmly believe that some guys going to sleep. Uh, I don't blame you if you want to play it safe at the plus 114 that Prochazka is right now. But plus 165 KO TKO for Prochazka is not bad. Sub is plus 1,000 if you're feeling froggy and you think it could be a Glover situation because he was actively trying to get the ground game going and employ that, and it was working wonderfully. But I think it would be a club and sub type situation like it was with Glover, where he just doesn't have his wits about him and he just takes it because it's offered to him type thing. So I'm just going to play it safe, I think, and I'm just going to go with the money line. As long as the money line stays at a plus, if you wait around and bullshit and don't place your bets until later and you find that the odds are closer or whatever, go KO, TKO, or sub to take the edge off. I don't think either one's going to decision. Both guys are too powerful, too strong, all that jazz. So KO, TKO is your bet, but I'm playing safe with money line at plus 114. What do you got?
I think, once again, outstanding breakdown, Bobby. It's hard to beat a guy at the UFC. It's harder to beat him again.
Right.
One of the things that we talk about is guys who back up and getting backed up against the fence. We say both of those are no-nos. Why is it a no-no? No, it's a no-no because once you get backed up against the cage, you've got nowhere to go. All of a sudden, you can either go left or right. There's no more moving back. You can only go forward, but there's a guy in front of you. So that's going to open you up to a lot more shots. His offense opens up a lot more, and then you automatically have to go on defense. So, like you said, he caught him against the cage. How often we just saw with Whitaker last weekend. How did that go for Aliskerov against the cage? Not good. Not good.
Right.
Just because Jiri got caught last time, I'm not going to put that into account for this fight. Also, like you said, Jiri has, I think, quite a large wrestling edge against Pereira. Jiri also 22% of the bets, 13% of the money, and this line too. So 88% of bets are coming in on Pereira, but this line is this close, minus 135 and plus 114. I feel like they want to keep Jiri's plus money low. And they love right now that 13% of the money is on him. He's only paying out 13% of the money at plus 114. Come on. Right. It has to be Jiri, man. It feels like it has to be Jiri. Man.
It's a close fight. But I mean, you can make an argument for either guy, but like I said, that's the beauty of this actually being a good card. Like we complain about bad cards, and that's fair. That's deserved criticism, but we also point out when the matchmaking and the cards are top notch. And this is a top notch card with top notch matchmaking. So
I wish that you could get the knockout at a much better price, because at plus 165, I mean, you're only getting like 50 more cents. It just doesn't feel like that's worth it. Just in case he gets the sub, in case it goes to decision. This is a title fight too. This is a 5-round fight. The over/under set up, what is it, 1.5 for a 5-round fight. And right now the over 1.5 is minus 166. Unders at plus 130.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be over. It's not gonna be quick, but it's damn sure not making it 5. If I had to pinpoint a round 2 or 3, it would end. It's not going to be round 1. I'd say 3. If I had to pick a specific round, I'd go it probably ends at 3.
You can get the round props, the winning round. If you take round 3 to be the round that it ends, it's at plus 500. You can get round 1 at plus 200, round 1 at plus 200, round 2 at plus 300, Round 4 at plus 800. Round 5 at plus 1,100. Or fight to start round 3. You can get that at yes at minus 110.
Yeah, they know that it's going to at least make it there.
Make
I don't think it sees the 4th, but
because once it get to the 4th, it jumps to plus 165. So it completely switches.
Both guys just have too much power.
Too
much power to make it.
I agree. So, yeah, I'm on Jiri too. Bobby, what do we think for the Haymaker this week?
The Haymaker's a tough one because there's some surprisingly good value here on this card. So to try to just narrow it down, Smith, you can't go wrong. I wonder, do you know what it would be if you just doubled up, since they're both such heavy pluses, if you doubled up on Smith by KO TKO at a plus 450 and sub at plus 700?
KO and sub plus 275.
I think I would do that.
Okay.
Because if you go decision, you're going to be putting your money on Dolidze. You're not putting your money on Smith by decision, because if it goes to decision, he's not going to be the one winning it. I like to hedge my bets, and especially when I can hedge my bets by the guy who has the superior striking with the better power. And I feel like not necessarily the better takedowns, but if he gets taken down, he's not just going to let you lay on him. Especially with Dolidze not having the weight advantage. That's where the weight advantage and fighting at your natural weight class and not killing yourself comes into play for a guy like Smith, who's like, I'm used to making this weight. I feel comfortable at this weight. Dolidze is going to, like I said, I don't think he's going to be fat. I don't think he's going to be out of shape, but like, he's not going to have what you look for when you cut weight and grappling. Like, you know it as a wrestler. You know as a wrestler that you cut weight, because when you lay on a guy and once you rehydrate and you weigh more than him, that guy's going to feel it. That guy, his life is going to fucking suck when you're able to cut more weight and put on more weight through rehydration and shit after weigh-ins. That's the situation Dolidze is going to find himself in. He's going to be like, fuck, this guy is like a real 205er. He's not just bloated up, trying to fucking meet a weight requirement on short notice. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it's not going to zap Dolidze's energy to make 205 because he's going up, but he's probably going to lose some speed. He's going to lose some pop or some snap. He's going to feel a little, like, not deflated because he's going to have plenty of food, but he's just going to feel sluggish, I bet. He's just not going to have that same zip and all that, and he's damn sure not going to be able to just impose that weight on a guy who this is where he's always at, and he has been comfortably at this weight for years. So anytime I can get two finishes combined together and still get a pretty hefty plus at 250, yeah, I'm taking that, because like I said, it ain't going to decision. So if you want to just really go balls out and plus 114 money line's not good enough, yeah, plus 250 for those, easy.
I like it, man. Anything before we get out of here?
No, just thanks for all the support. Thanks for tuning in, and we got big shit in store. So,
yes, sir. And if you guys haven't heard yet, we're going to be in Canton, Ohio, August 9th through the 11th for the Fantasy Football Expo. We're going to have a booth there. We're giving away some free stuff. We'd love to meet you guys. So make sure you come by, get some merch, talk to us. We'd love to talk to you guys. MMA, fantasy football, whatever you want. We're going to be selling our draft guide there. You can get our draft guide right now over on bettergreen.com. That's better, BETTOR green.com. It's 50% off right now, pre-order sales. It goes live July 19th. So guys, get it now. Once July 19th hits, jumps up to $20. So get it right now for $10 at bettergreen.com. We also got merch over there in case you guys need some fresh t-shirts. Also, check out Draft Kits. DraftKits.co is their website. They have the best fantasy football draft boards and stickers, I believe, on the market. I'm someone that's been playing fantasy football for over a decade. I've done a whole lot of live drafts, and I've done a lot of shopping for draft boards. And one of the best things about DraftKits.co, they also have custom draft kits, guys. And they are it's like a vinyl material. It's very thick, very high quality. We got one for our league that me and Bobby are in, and it's going to last forever. So if you guys just want to get one personalized for your league and just use it year after year, all you have to do is buy the stickers. They got you guys. They'll send you a digital proof before it prints so you can make sure everything looks okay. I love these guys. I can't recommend them enough. Right now, use code BIG24. That's BIG24 on their website. It'll get you guys 10% off your draft kits. Once again, these are some of the cheapest and best draft kits on the market, and you get 10% off. You can't beat it, guys. Head over there now. Make sure you guys subscribe to Better and Green so you guys can see all of our content. We got a lot of stuff coming out. Fantasy football is here. We're breaking down that, and we're breaking down more MMA on the next show. Peace, guys.
Oh, hold on.
Yes.
I have one more thing. One quick thing. If you stuck around this long, there's a special surprise.
Oh, God.
That draft board is actually not made out of vinyl. I do have to correct you. It's actually made out of their mother's pubic hair.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Bobby. Thank you for the correction. Peace, guys.
Anytime.
You better start listening to the Better and Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Better and Green, eh? To Better and Green, eh? To Better and Green, eh? Listen in and cash out. That's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover all spot from the bottom to the top, hey. Shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome, welcome to our podcast, Better and Green.